Yes, information is power. It is the source of all knowledge. This is Information Man. Welcome to my podcast. What I'm going to attempt to do, try to do, execute is a full assessment and analysis and critical assessment of one Colin Kaepernick in the unfortunate circumstances that this brother finds himself in today. You see, Colin Kaepernick is going up against symbolism, mom and pa's apple pie, the American way, the John Wayne philosophy, how America was won. He's going up against all these forces in the stance that he took. Because in America, symbolism is so powerful that it controls everything that we do. Because in America, quite frankly, we are culturally conditioned by our symbolism, by American values, or as they would say, Western values. So much.
But Americans lose their ever-loving shit when you destroy their symbols. Statues, flags, pledges of allegiance, $20 bills, white Jesus, and Merry fucking Christmas. You come for any of that stuff, you got rioting in the streets and domination of the news cycle for weeks.
Yes, you will have rioting in the streets. And what Colin Kaepernick situation is just that, in sort of a interesting way. You see, when he decided to take a knee, his perspective as he explained it originally, and it seems that people didn't listen to the young brother, is that he did this at a time when black men and women were being killed undiscriminately by your police department, police in this country, who we pay taxes to. Colin Kaepernick made an interesting statement about it takes more hours to become a beautician, someone who does hair and styles hair. It takes more hours to do that than people who are given a badge, a license to kill, a gun, uniform. And one Colin Kaepernick, I would have to say, now I'm going to preach here now on the highest mountain. He was correct. But he's paid a price because he's gone against the American symbolism, which is the flag, which we're all making a big mess and fuss about. Now, Colin Kaepernick so eloquently stated that he got the idea from a military man who told him, if you are going to protest, the best way to still make honor to the flag is to stand on a knee, kneel on a knee, which is the same thing that they do when they present the flag to a falling soldier's family out of respect. Now, when you talk about proper flag etiquette, the way we see the flag being presented by the NFL and those who criticize Colin Kaepernick is completely false, because the flag is supposed to be not draped over the football field that you see in the NFL. That's not proper flag etiquette. That's disrespectful to the flag, and you're not supposed to wear it on caps and T-shirts. It's technically supposed to be flown in the air in the horizontal position, blowing in the air, being held up high. But yet the NFL doesn't do that, and yet they want to call out Colin Kaepernick. Now, another thing that I want to bring up that has been lost in everything around Colin Kaepernick is the fact that Colin Kaepernick, when he took his stance, was standing for black people. He was standing up to what was happening to African Americans or black people or melanated people in these United States. Okay? And when he did that, there were only a handful or a sprinkle of black players in the NFL that engaged in what Colin Kaepernick was standing for. I remember free safety or strong safety Reed of the 49ers was one of the first to take a knee with him and be sympathetic to what his cause was. Now, you've got one Jim Brown who stated this in an interview.
So we're here with the great Jim Brown. Jim, break down from your perspective, I think you have a very unique perspective on this, the Colin Kaepernick situation. Whether or not you think he should be playing, what this says about the state of the NFL today. What are your views?
Well, you know, Colin has to make up his mind whether he's truly an activist or whether he's a football player. If you try to be both in a situation, football is commercial, you have owners, you have fans, and you want to honor that if you're making that kind of money.
Now, I've got to stop right there. Jim Brown is a big disappointment for me because, one, I looked up to Jim Brown coming up as a young man. He stood for a lot of black men. He was a man who walked his own walk, went by his own bell, and didn't pretty much do what the man told him to do. Now, he played in the NFL where it was still commercial. He decided to stand up for one, and I love him, Muhammad Ali, who took a stance that he would not go to Vietnam and fight in Vietnam because he had a fight here at home. Why go to Vietnam when Vietnamese never called him a nigger? Why go to Vietnam when his fight was here at home in American society? That was his stance. And guess who jumped right in there with him? Your Jim Brown. Also, Jim Brown was the same individual who decided he didn't want to be a football player anymore because he could be an actor. He had more things he wanted to do, and he took his stance, which is why he cut his career short. However, in the year 2017, one Jim Brown has seemed to have forgotten that he was such the activist while being a football player. So he's very hypocritical. Hate to say it, I almost feel that Jim Brown has been cooning a little bit lately ever since Donald Trump got into office. He's been cooning a little bit, in my opinion, but he's so hypocritical. Moving on with the audio.
If you have a cause, I think you should organize it, present it in a manner where it's not only you sitting on one knee, but a lot of people that is going to get behind each other and do something about it.
Now, Jim Brown says that Colin Kaepernick should have a cause to do something about it. If I'm not mistaken, Colin Kaepernick has put his money where his mouth is. He's supporting organizations. He's getting involved in the community, working with youth. He's doing a hell of a lot more than some of your NFL players are doing, and even your so-called owners of these NFL teams. Now, let me play another audio for you.
This is Barack Obama. If you're listening to information, man, keep listening and subscribe.
Let me play an audio for you of this hater from ESPN, Mr. Will Cain, who for some reason he's been highly critical of Colin Kaepernick's stance, even making the statements that the man didn't deserve to be on the GQ magazine. But I've said this before in my previous YouTubes. Anytime a black man stands up and speaks out, you can always find either someone who is non-melanated telling us how we should think, what we should do, when we should do it. And they'll even find someone that looks like you who will try to discount what you have just said. And that's a quote from Malcolm X. They always will find someone to try to discount what has been said or what you just said. Here's Will Cain, who I think has another hidden agenda, even though he claims he sees it as a necessary discussion about these issues. But I've got issues with him.
The way I want to explain to you why I think Kaepernick was not the right Citizen of the Year. for GQ or for anyone else. When we get these notes, we talk about, hey, what are we going to do today on First Take? I got to be honest with you. Sometimes when it says, hey, Kaepernick is the topic, I get a little exasperated. I'm not alone. I'm sure you guys do. I'm sure people at home. It gets emotionally draining. It gets heated on the set. We debate. We sometimes yell. But that doesn't mean I'm not here for the conversation. I want to be a part of it.
Now, let me tell you something. He's made a statement that, well, when we bring up Kaepernick, it gets a little bit exacerbating. It gets a little bit heated. The reason why it gets heated is that anytime a black man is speaking up and speaking out about something that is concrete, something that is compensatory logic, that's when people that are non-melanated begin to tell us what to do. They can begin to say they don't want to hear from us. It's just like when we talk about racism and how racism affects us in this society, and you will have non-melanated people that will tell you, racism is, it's not what it was before. You have so many opportunities. Now, you'll have black conservatives that'll tell you that. You'll even have melanated people who will tell you don't talk about racism or don't talk about slavery. That's what I really wanted to get at, folks, slavery, because it happened so long ago that, you can't blame me for what my ancestors did. However, people that are non-melanated, that are dominant in this society we call America, the dominant culture, they have benefited from shackle slavery of my ancestry. Now, that's the truth. And you always, once again, like I say, find someone that looks like you who will take up that salute, that same type of talking point. Now, Will King says he feels that the arguments are important, but listen to him.
This conversation, because I think it's important. I think there are real issues when it comes to the African-American community in the United States at large. I think there are things we need to discuss, we need to debate, we need to talk about. And this leads me back to Kaepernick. Why do I not think Kaepernick then is the Citizen of the Year? Because he provoked a lot of these conversations, no matter where you...
So now, see, he contradicted himself. On the one hand, he says it's very important to be able to talk about the issues in this society that affect African Americans and some of the ills that we have in our society. But then he turns around and he says, well, Kaepernick is the one who provoked all of this. He just put his foot in his mouth, took foot out of mouth, put foot back into mouth. Such contradictory. Now, if you feel that it is important to have this discussion, then why would you be critical of one Kaepernick who brought up this whole thing and say that you're irritated by the issue? This is the deal. In America, when you are a melanated person, black person, and you are an athlete, they want you to stay in your place. There's all different kind of plantations. There's the corporate plantation. There's the athletic plantation. When it comes to football, if you analyze it, it's like a plantation. It's made up of mostly African-American men of color, playing on a field, just as they put us on fields during slavery to pick cotton and molasses and everything else. Now, in this case, you've got well-paid slaves who are paid so well that they can live large, although the owners are usually billionaires, okay? And you're always going to have those that are going to go with the master and those that will go against the master. And what Kaepernick did is he went against the grain. And if you notice, most of the players in the NFL that were African-American, they didn't originally stand up with Kaepernick as it related to what happened to black people. They began to stand up because they didn't like what one Donald Trump said when he said, they're sons of a bitches. And when he talked about the owners and what the owners should do, that's when the slave masters of this NFL plantation told his Negroes on the field, y'alls can now take a knee. Y'alls can now protest. See? But when Colin Kaepernick was talking about what was happening to black people and black men and women in this country, you didn't see owners and all these NFL players of all different races taking a knee, giving a demonstration. It was not until Donald Trump had something to say. So what does it tell me? Does it mean that when it comes to black life, nobody gives a damn? But when it comes to what Donald Trump says, everyone gives a damn. The priorities are wrong.
Fall on the spectrum of agree or disagree, you have to know that Colin Kaepernick was the catalyst for many of these conversations, especially those that spill out of the specifically political realm, meaning places like sports shows. So why would I not think Colin Kaepernick, the spark, if you will, that started that conversation is Citizen of the Year. Because I think you have to ask yourself, what conversation did you provoke? And my criticism of Colin Kaepernick from day one has been, what conversation did you provoke?
See, this non-melanated individual, Will Kane on ESPN, he's a fool. He's sitting up here trying to criticize Colin Kaepernick and say what message or what argument did he provoke. Fool, he just told you what his position is. Colin Kaepernick said that his position was that until the flag represents all people, what's happening to black people in America, then he will no longer need to protest. Colin Kaepernick already also said that there are military people who fight in the military and come home and they die here in America and no one cares about them. Yet in the media, in the newspapers, and all these talking heads and coons constantly tell you that they don't know what his position or his stance is. I mean, listen to Jim Brown again.
Football is commercial. You have owners, you have fans, and you want to honor that if you're making that kind of money. If you have a cause, I think you should organize it, present it in a manner where it's not only you sitting on one knee, but a lot of people that is going to get behind.
See, what's happened to Jim Brown is that Jim Brown has been neutered. He's telling Colin Kaepernick that, well, yeah, you're protesting against things that are legitimate that have been going on for years. And Colin Kaepernick said that he realizes that he stated in his original statements that he knows that this has been going on a long time. But Jim Brown wants him to put some cream in his hot coffee and water down his protest by presenting it in a way that does not do what? Does not push the envelope, does not push the what you would call the establishment, right? And the last time I checked, Jim Brown didn't give a damn about the establishment when he was playing. So it's bovine excrement, in my opinion, BS for Jim Brown to be sitting up here talking about what he's talking about. Moving on with the audio.
From the pig socks to the Castro shirt to the loose, I believe, understanding, at least on many factual bases of the issues facing our country, to saying I can't take pride in a flag for a country that oppresses African Americans, to not celebrating the 4th of July, the kind of conversation Colin Kaepernick specifically provoked.
Now, listen how this unmelanated individual who has never dealt with racism, how he characterizes one Colin Kaepernick. He states to us that Colin Kaepernick doesn't celebrate 4th of July. Last time I checked, where is it written that one must celebrate 4th of July? Now, this individual doesn't know history because the reality is that no black person or no melanated person or black people in particular in this country should be celebrating 4th of their lie, because that was the day in which Europeans here, whites here in this country, were fighting for their freedom against Great Britain, the Great Bank of Great Britain, because they were being taxed without representation. And so once the Europeans here got their freedom against Great Britain, they turned around and enslaved us. So how the hell can 4th of July be anything that's beneficial to black people? It's total bullcrap. Once again, telling us what to do, how we should think. And then he has the nerve to say he doesn't have a grasp of the issues. Colin Kaepernick has definitely the grasp of the issues. And I'm going to play for you audio of Colin Kaepernick speaking out, because the young man has the grasp of the issues. Here he is.
What are you trying to accomplish? What would you like this, to be the end game for you?
That's basically. Ultimately, it's to bring awareness and make people, realize what's really going on in this country. There are a lot of things that are going on that are unjust. People aren't being held accountable for, and that's something that needs to change. That's something that, this country stands for: freedom, liberty, justice for all, and it's not happening for all right now.
Is this something that's evolved as a philosophy in your mind, and how has this kind of progressed that you make a stand like this?
It's something that I've seen, I've felt, wasn't quite sure how to deal with originally, And it is something that's evolved. It's something as I've gained more knowledge about, what's gone on in this country in the past, what's going on currently. These aren't new situations. This isn't new ground. It's things that have gone on in this country for years and years and have never been addressed, and they need to be.
Will you continue, Colin, to sit? Will you continue to sit?
Yes, I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed. To me, this is something that has to change. And when there's significant change, and I feel like that flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand.
Specifically, what would you like to see change in order for you to stand?
There's a lot of things that need to change. One specifically is police brutality. There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are...
So, there you have it. Colin Kaepernick, in his own words, expresses what his position is. He's very respectful. And you've got everybody in the media over the past month, over this past year, demonizing the young man. And one of the things that you do have going on, and no one wants to deal with that, is that he Colin Kaepernick, in my humble opinion, there was collusions in the NFL to keep him out this year because you've got too many quarterbacks in the NFL either starting or as backups that are nowhere as good as one Colin Kaepernick. So the owners in the NFL truly are trying to lock this man out. And you've got the coonish NFL players, black players, who wait to stand up because one racist Donald Trump calls them a son of a bitch when everybody knew that Donald Trump was sort of a hater type of individual who talks about people, runs off at the mouth, as he's currently getting into a word game with one Mr. Ball, which is a waste of time because Mr. Ball is an opportunist, and we need to have conversations that are productive. And anytime a black man stands up and speaks the truth, he is criticized, but yet they allow Mr. Ball to continue his buffoonery, arguing with one racist Donald Trump, and then at the same time trying to push $495 shoes on the public, and then one of his sons gets themselves in trouble in China stealing. A bad reflection of Mr. Ball, who has greatness of yonder in his mind, delusional thoughts about how great his son is or going to be. It's interesting. We'll focus on Negroes who are ignorant and have nothing to offer us but $495 shoes rubber on your feet. But here we have a black man who's talking about standing up against what's happening to black people. And at the same time, you've got other NFL players standing up because of what Donald Trump says. And then when they had a meeting in New York, you didn't have any of these NFL players stand up in unison and say, we're not going to have any meetings. We're not going to stop doing what we're doing until you let Colin Kaepernick, who started this whole thing, in the front door to talk about these issues. Now, I haven't seen too many of the NFL players come together and make those demands. It's really a shame, but that's what you get when you have a plantation mentality, which you have in the NFL. On with the audio with Kaepernick.
Getting paid leave for killing people. That's not right. That's not right by anyone's standards.
Colin, so many people see the flag as kind of a symbol of military. How do you view it, and what do you say to those people?
I have great respect for men and women that have fought for this country. I have family. I have friends that have gone and fought for this country. And they fight for freedom. They fight for the people. They fight for liberty and justice for everyone. And that's not happening. I mean, people are dying in vain because this country isn't holding their end of the bargain up as far as, giving freedom and justice and liberty to everybody. It's something that's not happening. And I've seen videos, I've seen circumstances where men and women that have been in the military have come back and been treated unjustly by the country they fought for.
Now you hear that young Kaepernick, this young brother is brilliant. He has a grasp of the issues. He breaks it down. He says you've even got military personnel that comes back to this country and they are treated terribly. Yet you got people at the football games and people on television who want to talk like they're so patriotic. You got Donald Trump, who talks like he's such patriotic, yet this is a man who did everything he could with bone spurs to get out of going to Vietnam when it counted to be a patriotic American. See, you got a bunch of chicken hawks running around, and he breaks it down. You have military people that are being treated poorly when they get here, but nobody talks about that. But they want to call Colin Kaepernick a poor citizen.
This is Barack Obama. If you're listening to Information Man, keep listening and subscribe.
Now I want to play for you with one Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who many, many years ago or decades ago was involved in the situation with one Muhammad Ali. I love Muhammad Ali. He was one of the members that stood behind Muhammad Ali in support of him, along with one Jim Brown, who I don't know what's happened to this brother, this man this year. Jim Brown has been, will the real Jim Brown please just damn stand up? Here is one Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was one of my favorite basketball players growing up.
Last year, Colin Kaepernick started a movement across the NFL by kneeling for the national anthem. Cap remains unsigned, but the players in the NFL and other sports have continued to demonstrate. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is still with us. Kareem, how much impact has Kaepernick had?
I think he's had a significant impact. He's made people think, and I think that's a tough role to play, and he took it on. And I got to take my hat off to him in that sense for his courage and determination to not shy away from the issue.
Do you feel like it cost him his job?
It probably has, and I think that's very unfortunate. I don't think his job should depend on his politics and what he feels about the fact that our nation has not always lived up to its ideals. You know, the equal treatment under the law is supposed to be an ideal of this country, and when that doesn't happen and people pay with their lives, this is a serious issue, and that's what he's talking about. And it's unfortunate that people are trying to take it and twist it into saying that he doesn't respect the country. He wants the country to live up to its ideals. That's what it's about. I wish he was a little bit more inclined to be articulate about it, and we could hear about it from him, and people like me wouldn't have to come and try to defend him.
So you heard from the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who says that he wants Colin Kaepernick to speak out more. But in fact, Colin Kaepernick has been speaking out. He broke it down in his original manuscript of why he did what he did.
And have been murdered by the country they fought for on our land. That's not right.
Do you personally feel oppressed? Personally?
There have been situations where I feel like I've been ill-treated, yes, but this stand wasn't for me. This stand wasn't because I feel like I'm being put down in any kind of way. This is because I'm seeing things happen to people.
And see, now you see that Colin Kaepernick breaks it down. He's got the graphs of the issues, but you got people like Jim Brown stating this.
Football is commercial. You have owners, you have fans, and you want to honor that if you're making that kind of money.
So Jim Brown brings it about money. He makes it about money. So if Colin Kaepernick is making a lot of money, he has to honor that by means of pushing his concerns politically, socially, to the side, and what's happened to black people. And just play football. Just run that ball. Run, boy, run up and down that field. That's all they want to see us as gladiators, Mandinka games. Just run a football. That's what they want. When you speak out, they try to destroy you. But when you act like a buffoon, like Mr. Ball, you get all the press. See how backwards our society is today? And you got people like one Jim Brown, who I used to look up to. I just don't understand what's happening. One Jim Brown. I'm going to play you another audio to clearly open up one's mind.
This is Barack Obama. If you're listening to Information Man, keep listening and subscribe.
And so Colin Kaepernick, in my opinion, has been been mistreated, mischaracterized in so many ways. Now you've got Ray Lewis and Sterling Sharp, who's definitely been a supporter for one Colin Kaepernick. But you got Ray Lewis, who plays both sides of the master. I mean, he loves his master, but then he wants to act like he's a field Negro when he's really a house Negro. Here's one Ray Lewis.
And does what he does. If Colin calls, Shay, and you know this, yes. If Colin calls 50 to 100 guys around the league and say, man, look, this is what I'm standing for, I guarantee you get a lot of them to follow you. I believe it. But sometimes when you go by yourself, the thing that happens is nobody understands what the deal is until you start to actually get into it. So now you think about what Roger's stance is right now. Roger has the stance that says, listen.
I played the audio for you. One, Colin Kaepernick already stated what his stance is. He broke it down eloquently. He broke it down smoothly. He has a grasp of the issues. Listen to him.
People that don't have a voice, people that don't have a platform to talk and have their voices heard and affect change. So I'm in a position where I can do that, and I'm going to do that for people that can't. Is this the first?
So Colin Kaepernick says he's in a position to make change, to wake people up. And like I said, he's putting his money where his mouth is. He's donated. He's working with kids. He's working with youth. He's standing for his cause. So people like Jim Brown and people like Ray Lewis, they really don't know what they're talking about because they've allowed themselves now to become, I would have to say, in the establishment now. More audio.
Get it, Colin. A lot of people stand, a lot of players stand for different things, but you got to understand what you're standing for. I don't think it's about the flag per se, right? Because
now I played the audio. Colin Kaepernick definitely knows what the hell he's standing for. Ray Lewis is such a buck dancing individual, boot licking individual these days.
First year that you haven't stood up, did you do it other years or is this the first time?
This year's the first year that I've done this.
You did all the preseason games so far?
Yes.
This is the first time it was noticed?
Yes.
And how did your teammates respond when you explained yourself today, and what was the support like for you?
The support I've got from my teammates has been great.
So you hear Colin Kaepernick say that the support that he got from his teammates was great, but then you got Ray Lewis talking about maybe he would get some of his teammates to back him up if they knew what he was standing for. See, these, like I said, they always will find someone to try to discount what you say, someone that looks just like you. Moving on with the audio.
My only advice to Colin Kaepernick is this. Listen, I understand what you're trying to do, but understand, take the flag out of it. Right. I have uncles, I got brothers who walked out of my house going into the military that said, I will never see you again. To understand that, I will always respect that.
Didn't Colin Kaepernick just say that he respects people who stand for the flag? Now, didn't he just say that?
Men and women that have been in the military have come back and been treated unjustly by the country they fought for and have been.
Now, let me stop it right there. Colin Kaepernick says that men and women that have fought for this country have come back and been poorly treated. And you've got Ray Lewis talking about he's disrespecting people in the military. No, he isn't. He said in his statements that he's not doing anything to disrespect people in the military. Now, he said that.
How do you view it, and what do you say to those people?
I have great respect for men and women that have fought for this country. I have family. I have friends that have gone and fought for this country. And they fight for freedom. They fight for the people. They fight for liberty and justice for everyone. And that's not happening. I mean, people are dying in vain because this country isn't holding their end of the bargain up as far as, giving freedom and justice and liberty to everybody.
Now, you hear Colin Kaepernick say freedom, liberty, and justice to everyone. That is his stance. That's why he took the knee. That's why Colin Kaepernick did what he did. So when you hear all these pundits on sports shows and people giving their opinion, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like that idiot Will Kane on ESPN talking about he doesn't have a grasp of the issues. BS. If a black man speaks up intelligently, he's a threat in this society. But if he acts like Mr. Ball, pushing shoes and acting like a buffoon, a coon, and doing a minstrel show, well, bring him right on up, give him all the attention he needs, because that's how we want these people to behave themselves. Let's move on with the coon Ray Lewis and hear what he has to say further.
Part of what our patriotism should be, right? And that's the side that I think if Colin really just steps back, because to effect change, right? To effect true change and what he's trying to say, if you don't have a real solution, if you ain't seen as a true activist to go into these hoods.
Now you've got one Ray Lewis trying to question whether Kaepernick is real, whether he's dedicated, whether he really has a role to play, whether he has an issue that he's fighting for. The young man has already expressed his issue once again.
It's something that's not happening. And I've seen videos, I've seen circumstances where men and women that have been in the military have come back and been treated unjustly by the country they fought for and have been murdered by the country they fought for on our land. That's not right.
Colin, do you personally feel oppressed? Personally?
There have been situations.
So he said there's been situations where he's felt oppressed. See, a lot of times people think that if you are an athlete and you make a lot of money that racism doesn't affect you. It's just like when LeBron James had his house in L.A. vandalized and someone put the N-word, nigger word on his house. And you had idiots on television like Jason Lockton talking about, oh, because he's rich, it doesn't affect him. That's BS. You don't know what kind of psychological effect that can have on you. I remember one Bill Russell when he played in Boston for the Boston Celtics. He was a popular athlete, and he got his home vandalized when he was in Boston many times with racial slurs. I believe that it was one Jackie Robinson, that people don't know this history. Jackie Robinson didn't stand for the flag when he played baseball, when he was going through all the hell he was going, trying to break the color barrier in this country. He didn't stand for the flag. Okay? I think he was even court-martialed, or they tried to court-martial him when he was in the military. And black folks have no business in the military, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion.
This is Barack Obama. If you're listening to information, man, keep listening and subscribe.
So, Kaepernick has complete grasp of the issues. I totally disagree with Ray Lewis and what he was saying. And I'm going to go on with the audio.
To do these things on a daily basis and not just jump up and just protest off this one thing because you're sick of it. We've been sick of racism for 400 plus years. But we won't.
So as you can see, he says we've been sick of racism for 400 years. We know that, Ray Lewis. Why don't you wake up to that reality and stop cooning and dancing? Because America loves its symbols.
But Americans lose their ever-loving shit when you destroy their symbols. Statues, flags, pledges of allegiance, $20 bills, white Jesus, and Merry fucking Christmas. You come for any of that stuff, you got rioting in the streets and domination of the news cycle for weeks.
That's right. Another reminder. That is the truth. America is built on these symbolisms. I'm going to play some more of what Brother Kaepernick had to say.
You know, I really respect you for what you're doing and what you're standing for. So, to me, that's something that I know what I'm doing what's right, and I know other people see what I'm doing is right. It's something that we have to come together, we have to unite, we have to unify and make a change.
What do you say to the people that say, hey, you're doing the right thing, but you're going about it the wrong way?
I don't understand how it's the wrong way. To me, this is a freedom that we're allowed in this country. And going back to the military thing, it's a freedom that men and women that have fought for this country have given me this opportunity by the country.
So as you can see, Kaepernick is saying he doesn't understand how he's being disrespectful. He's standing for something. Keep this in mind. Protest is not a system of convenience. You don't protest and say, let me do it in a convenient fashion. Protest is supposed to provoke. It is supposed to be inconvenient to society, to people. That's why it's called protest. My God, let me hit the alarm on that one. I want to thank everyone for listening to my podcast. This is Information Man. And Brother Kaepernick, I must play some more of him.
Contributions they have made. So I don't see it as going about it the wrong way.
He said he's not going about it the wrong way. I stand with Brother Kaepernick. I want to thank everyone for listening to my podcast, for supporting my podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Information Man. I want to thank everyone for listening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.